so before we move on into the small intestine all along the alimentary canal, let's first look at a couple of accessory organs that release secretions into the beginning of the small intestine called the duodenum. So this is the beginning of the small intestine, that's duodenum, stomach is here. So moving from the stomach into this area, you see a few tubes right here. One of those tubes comes from this organ, and that is the pancreas. Now the pancreas secretes hormones and also digestive enzymes. So we talked about hormones before. The main hormones it secretes out of here is insulin, which causes our body to take in, our body cells to take in glucose, and glucagon, which helps keeps our blood glucose levels normal in between meals. So those ducts of those digestive enzymes, though, empty into the opening of the small intestine or duodenum. All right. So these are secreted by these pancreatic acinar cells. So that's what this is showing. This is showing those islets of Langerhans, which secrete those enzymes. All right. So the acinar cells secrete pancreatic juice, and they secrete a lot of it. So anywhere from 1,200 to 1,500 milliliters per day. So when you think about this, this is like 1.5 quarts of digestive fluids from our pancreas per day. So that consists of enzymes and also electrolytes. Now the main electrolyte here is bicarbonate. So bicarbonate, HCO3 with a negative charge to it, this makes that pancreatic juice alkaline, so about a pH of 8. And this is to neutralize acidic chyme from the stomach. So the stomach would be here, so that chyme from the stomach goes into our small intestine there. Now the small intestine doesn't have a lining like the stomach does to deal with that acidity. So that pancreatic juice is going to neutralize that chyme once it enters into the small intestine. All right. Also in here is a variety of enzymes. So peptidases are enzymes that break down proteins. Amylases are enzymes that break down starches, carbohydrates. Lipases are enzymes that break down lipids, and then to a small degree nucleases, which are enzymes that break down nucleic acids. Okay, so let's move on from the pancreas to the liver. Now our liver, you can see on here, there's our liver. Our liver is our largest internal organ. It is a central relay station for nutrients. So this is a front view, underneath view, top view of the liver. So I wanted to go to these things. So this is a blow up of what's in our liver. And we have these things called lobules. And what happens here is that you can see this says hepatic portal vein. That's blood that's actually been absorbed from our digestive tract. So either the stomach or small intestine. And that blood now goes through our liver. So that that blood there, those liver cells in there are going to absorb those nutrients and redistribute those nutrients at timely fashions throughout the body. So let's look at the functions of our liver. One is carbohydrate metabolism. So here it can make glycogen from glucose. Now if you remember, glycogen is our storage form of glucose. It's just long chains of glucose molecules. It can break down glycogen into glucose. So insulin causes us to make glycogen. Glucagon causes us to break that glycogen down into glucose, release it into the blood to keep our blood glucose levels normal in between meals. Next, it can also convert non-carbohydrates to glucose. That's also known as gluconeogenesis. Next is lipid metabolism. It can break down fatty acids. It can make lipoproteins, which is a lipid protein complex. It can make phospholipids and also cholesterol. And it can also convert carbohydrates and proteins into fat so we can store them. It's also involved, our liver is also involved in protein metabolism. So here, one of the main things it does is it deaminates amino acids. Now, amino acids are the building blocks for proteins. And when we eat a protein, we absorb those amino acids into our blood. But if we don't use those amino acids to make a protein, we break down those amino acids down for energy. And so that's what the deamination process is. So there's an amine group on an amino acid, and that part we can't use for energy. So we chop it off and then eventually make urea with that, and that rest of the amino acid we can use for energy. So that's what deamination is. So also in protein metabolism, we can also make plasma proteins. Another function of the liver is storage. So it stores glycogen, different vitamins, A, D, and B12, and also stores iron. It is also a blood filter. So we have hepatic macrophages in our liver that are going to remove damaged red blood cells and foreign substances. It's also a detoxification. So in detoxification, it breaks down toxins that are in our blood. One of the main things here is alcohol that we might ingest. In fact, 90% of the alcohol that we ingest is broken down by our liver. 5% is removed by our kidneys. The other 5% diffuses off our skin and our lungs. That's what's detected in a breathalyzer test. The other 90% is broken down by our liver. And there's nothing to speed this process up. You just have to give your liver time to break down that alcohol. And it's essentially takes 1 hour for every alcoholic beverage. Next is secretion. So secretion is the next function of our liver in that it secretes bile. We'll talk about bile here very shortly. And lastly, it can serve as a blood reservoir. So it stores anywhere from 200 to 400 milliliters of blood. There are a couple diseases that we can get in our liver. One is hepatitis. So there's an inflammation of the liver due to a viral infection, drug toxicity, or wild mushroom poisoning. So that's why you don't eat any mushrooms that you don't know what they are. Another disease is cirrhosis. This is a chronic inflammation of the liver. This is due to alcoholism or chronic hepatitis. Basically what it does is so alcoholism, where you drink a lot of alcohol, or chronic hepatitis, they can kill hepatocytes. And then instead of replacing those hepatocytes with other hepatocytes, you replace it with scar tissue that is fatty and fibrous. And that starts to replace your liver parts there. And so eventually your liver stops functioning. Let's move on to bile. Now bile is a yellow-green alkaline liquid secreted from the hepatocytes. And they're shown on here, like the green stuff is trying to show that bile. So bile contains several things. Ones are bile salts, bile pigments, cholesterol, neutral fats, and electrolytes. So the bile salts are emulsifiers. They basically take a large fat globulate and they break it into smaller globulates. So they kind of have this kind of mechanical function in that. And this allows the lipases to break down those fats more easily and completely. And they also, those bile salts also enhance the absorption of fatty acids, cholesterol, and fat-soluble vitamins, which are A, D, E, and K. Bile salts are also then reabsorbed by our ileum, which is our last part of our small intestine, and then redistributed back to our liver. So we secrete them and then reabsorb them so we can reuse them again. Lastly in here is our gallbladder that I want to mention. So this is an underneath view. There's our gallbladder. It turns a greenish color due to the bile pigments. So our gallbladder is a sac-like organ that stores and concentrates bile. It's associated with our liver. It concentrates bile by absorbing water. And what can happen with some people is they get gallstones. And so this is trying to show gallstones here, right, in this x-ray. And the problem with those gallstones is they can clog up either the cystic duct or the common bile duct, leading to bile not being able to move, and this creates a lot of pain. And so, you'll have to get those removed.